Hi, Nicholas here. Now, I wish I had this information when I was just starting out to learn piano. I went through many years developing this information, and if I just knew this when I was younger in my early 20s, I would have saved myself a lot of time, and who knows where I would have been now. Anyway, so I've written this book for you. So you don't have to go through everything that I went through, and you can learn the exact things you need to know in order for you to be able to play piano. So if you've clicked on this video, it means you're interested to play piano, okay? But the first thing, before we start, the first thing you got to do is believe in yourself. Believe that you can do it, because one of the drawbacks when I was younger was really not convincing myself that this was the thing for me. I love doing it, and I spent a lot of time, but I followed other careers, and I eventually sort of came back, and now I've just decided to do this full time. So I love playing and performing, but I also love teaching. So let's get into it. So I've written a book of all my knowledge over the last 30 years. Last year I wrote the bulk of this book, bringing my knowledge all together, and now I'm offering this book in two parts, part A and B. So part A is more theoretical, although there's plenty of exercises and we do get stuck into it. Part B is where we really train ourselves to learn songs, and it's got a singing section, and there's a lot in part B as well. So part A is available now, and we're going to go through the chapters to see how this book can help you become a better performer, better composer and improviser. So let's get straight into it. Firstly, akousunesis, meaning, it's in Greek, it means to listen. Akou means to listen. Sunesis means, it refers to understanding and intellect, and more insight. So this method brings together your ear as for listening as the prime focus, that comes first, and then you take what you hear and you can explain it through theory. And this method focuses heavily on intervals, among other things. Okay, so the objective of this book is to give students an underlying practical knowledge, so stuff that will help you be a better player. So not theoretical knowledge that you can't use in your playing. So whatever I've got in this book, it's just for being able to play, okay? Or compose or improvise. Composition and improvise is very similar. So that's it with that bit. Now this book is a living document. That means that I do have a PDF available for you to purchase for 25 Australian dollars. Each lesson I do is also available as a PDF for $5. So every lesson, and I'm using this book as the source of knowledge to write the book. I'm always focused on new ways of teaching, so I want to keep the book open to it's officially published. But once you purchase the book, you get a lifetime free revisions. So once you've done that initial purchase on A, and I do revise it, I've already put one revision, and anything new I can think of, or a better way to teach something, I will revise the book, put it up, and then send you either an email, or we'll have some automatic system for you just to get that, that latest revision. Okay, now your commitment and my commitment. So your commitment is that you have to commit to yourself that you want to play piano. And if you tell yourself you can't do it or it's too hard, well, you're stopping yourself from moving ahead. I'd say you really want to tell yourself it's possible, and I could get really good at this if I do the right things and you have the right guidance, especially when you're in the younger years. If you're a young man starting out or a young woman in their early 20s, and you want to start to think about this as something more serious than just jamming with your friends and mucking around, and you really want to think of this as a career, as a full-time career, you've got to start to get serious. Okay? So you need the commitment. Now, my commitment to you will be that I will use my book to create lessons. So that's my source of knowledge, right? So you can follow the dreams you want. So I'll give you the support, encouragement and teaching that you need. But I'm only going to do that to students who are committed. So, and the only way I know that you're committed is if you purchase book part A, right? Even if you're there just, you're still sussing it out, whether I should get and buy the book now. Just watch the videos. They're for free, right? You'll know within a few videos that this is for you. This method is for you. So I encourage you to watch maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 videos. And then if you get serious, we purchase the book. You're my online student and we work together from then on. And you can ask me questions. You become high priority. Any questions in the description, I'll answer. I'll put you above others who haven't bought the book. Email me, and I can answer questions that way, or I can make a YouTube video. All right, let's get on with what's in the book. Okay, my YouTube commitment. I think I've mentioned all that. Okay. Book chapters now. We're going to go through it. So wherever you see this light bulb, it's new stuff that either I have invented or it's a new way of thinking about things, right? When we get to scales and mode, there's a lot of stuff I've actually invented and put in my book that's useful for composition and improvisation particularly, right? So, and that's in the mode section. But let's just quickly go through the chapters so you can see what's in this book. So this is part A of the book and we have 6 chapters, right? So very quickly, basic knowledge. So you're gonna learn about the keyboard. I've already got lessons on that. Visualizing the note names. I've already gotten the lesson out on that one. Introduction to intervals, lesson 2. It's a bit tricky at first, maybe. Right, so a lot of these lessons you might revisit, especially introduction to intervals. You'll see intervals a lot throughout this course because it focuses on intervals as one of our main communication languages of how we describe music. Right? Introduction to the Western major scale. I'm going through all 12 major keys now, so I've done 3 of them already. So I'm going to go through all of them. Now there's other information in basic knowledge, just why the keyboard was chosen. A little bit about the guitar neck and how intervals are constructed on guitars. Now this knowledge applies for any musical instrument. It focuses on piano, being a better piano player, but a lot of this knowledge applies to guitars as well. So if you're a guitarist, you will benefit from at least the theoretical aspects of this book. I'll keep on going. Chapter 2, okay, chapter 2 is all about intervals, right? So we have 12 intervals in Western music, so I'm not going to go through any details, I'm just giving you a quick look. This is a quick look of what's inside the book, okay? Relative pitch versus absolute pitch. One thing like, does absolute pitch actually exist? Because all you need is a reference in your head. But relative pitch is how we hear music. Interval table, representation of the 12 for easy memorization. So that's some new way of thinking in this method. Interval inversions, training the ear to hear intervals. So I've got some unique methods to do that. The Western major scale, introduction to modes. We just have a quick introduction to what modes are, right? A few new ideas there too. An interval circle, we'll discuss what that is. Introduction, circle fifths, and then we go through all the keys. Right? Talk a bit about, excuse me, enharmonic key signatures. We talk about finger identification. That's something a bit different in this system. In this system, we don't have traditional finger numbers. We name our fingers thumb, index, middle, ring, and pinky on both hands. And there's a reason for that. It's because we don't want to get them mixed up with interval numbers, right? When we're learning songs, our language will be intervals, and we'll be going the 5th, 7th, 6th, and we're not going to go. So if we're going to say middle finger on the 3rd, we're not going to go 3-3. That will be way too confusing. So I've eliminated that in this system, and we just have letters for our fingers. Scale finger placement, and I'm going through that as well in these lessons. So that I have already 3 out. Then we're going to get stuck into chords. Now, chords has got a lot of new stuff here, new ways to think about things, which is unique to the Akousunesis method. Interval collection, so chords is a collection of intervals. Chord character, the actual collection of intervals, how they sound to our ear. Chords and the relationship within a key. So we have those Roman numerals. Note order, remembering chords, different ways to remember melody chords and learning songs. So all this stuff is new ways to think about these chords and their relationship. Using the fifths and the octaves as reference intervals. That one's very exciting when I do a video and I'll show you how to make all the chords to find them very quickly. And you'll know all of them. And you won't be relying on chord charts. You know, the big charts where they show you every single chord and the finger placements. You can toss that out the window. Quickly locating fifths on the keyboard. That will blow you away. All this. Very excited. Chords continued. All right. So power chords. We continue talking about chords. The light bulb. Quickly locating all the intervals on the keyboard. So I'll go through, show you all that. Chord inversions, triads, arpeggios, and there is much more in this chapter, but it just kept on going on. So let's get to the next chapter. Now, all this way to visualize is quite unique for the Akousunesis method. New ways to think about things. Okay, so how we visualize notes, how we use memory associations to visualize our notes. And how to visualize fifths and fourths on the piano. Fifths are the most important because they act as our reference points. Visualizing all the scales. Right? Now, I've got part of this going with those 3 lessons I've already put out. When we're learning all our major keys, I start off with the visualization, and you'll see if you watch those videos how helpful that can be, especially when we get to the some of the harder key signatures. Visualizing chords, dynamic chord visualization and improvisation, visualizing songs. How do you visualize a song? Well, you'll have to get the book, but there's a few ways to do it. So one, for instance, just visualizing the way your hand moves over the chords is one way. There's a few different ways you can helps you remember songs. When we're remembering songs, we bring in a whole lot of memory associations to help us. So we're just not relying on a muscle memory. The muscle memory is actually the last thing we rely on because it's unreliable. And if we just learn a song by muscle memory, all we can do is play that song the way we've learned it with muscle memory. But if we want to improvise and we want to do exciting new things with a song, we need to understand what we're doing. So that's the whole purpose of this course. Chapters, scales and modes. So this is by far the hardest section. The first few bits here are quite straightforward, but it gets harder and harder and harder. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I've actually invented, and it's never been seen before. And it's ways to think about things and new invented ways to create songs, use it for composition and improvisation. Okay, so we've got Western major scale, the modes in that representation. So let's go crazy. That's where it starts to really get crazy and a lot of fun. And I'll spend a lot of time doing videos when I get to the scales and modes, and we'll take it slowly through the videos. But of course, if you have the book and start reading it, you can ask me questions. And that way I know what to focus on too, because if something isn't exactly that clear, it might be perfectly clear to me because I wrote it, but it might not be clear to you, and then I have to reread it and think about it, put my head in your head, and then try to create a video to explain it better. So I'm always doing that. That's why I have revisions on my book. Harmonic minor. Roman numeral representation of chords. One thing difference in the Akousunesis method, you'll probably be familiar with, we name each chord by the Roman numerals. So the minor chords are the small Roman numerals and the major chords are the large. In this system, we don't use small Roman numerals. The reason is we just use large. And the reason is that you should know which is the minor chords, the character of the basic character of all your chords. That's one reason. You should know that. You shouldn't need to be reminded visually. But we allocate that space next to it for an alteration, and I'll show you what I mean down the track when we get into it. So it's something new and different, but it's extremely useful because you can, for instance, if I go 3, the chord 3, right? So we're in C. I can't see the keyboard here, but so that's the C major, right? So if I go, that's a minor chord, right? But if I go 3 and then an M, it means we're gonna normally we'll have a 3, which is a minor, but the M means the character of the chord after the 3. So we're gonna be on the chord 3, but we're gonna change it to a major. That's what the M means, right? In my system. And the reason why that is really, really useful is that you can learn when you're describing a song that someone else has written, right? And you point out parts of the song which have gone out of key, for instance. You can get a lot of information about that song. So a 3 M uses a chord which happens to be in the harmonic minor of that key. So you'll learn all about this and how useful that is. So I went on a bit much about that. Melodic minor scales, modal relationships, all this stuff a lot of this is a new way to think about it. Modal chord equivalence completely invented a new concept that I've invented for this book. Modal alterations and modal equivalence, pure and key modal scales, all the last 4 there are new inventions. Investigating scales using constraints and why we use constraints. I've already introduced constraints in the first 3 lessons and gave you a reason why we use them. And so then we're just going to see some common scales, the whole tone chromatic. These are very basic common scales. Then we get a bit more interesting near the end here, other scales of interest. And then a new invention again, modal equivalent scales. What does that mean? How can we use it? Right? And a lot of this stuff is an easy way in your real-time playing to remember an interesting scale. Right? And you can remember it by a modal name and an operation. Right? Because we know all our modes, right? And if we can remember just the operation that to alter the mode, it's easier to remember the scale rather than trying to remember the actual formula of the scale, the harmonic formula. If we remember just 2 little things, we can work it out quite easily, and then we can start to create our own compositions once we have that understanding. New invention that I've invented in this book. Altered scales, new way to think about altered scales. All this is new too. Transposition application is another invention of mine. Modal scale stacking, what that means. These are all inventions, rising stacked modal scales. And lastly, the constraints. So that's it for part, I can get out of that. That's it for part A of my book. And part B, I'm still working on finalising, but I'm going to get part A moving first with YouTube, get more students and more students. And I'll be doing some videos which I take from part B down the track when we're learning songs, particularly some of that analysis videos that I've started uses a lot of the information in part B. But part A of the book is theoretical knowledge with exercises that you really need to know before you can get to part B of the book, right? And really get into this system of how we go about learning songs. But you'll get the idea if you watch some of those analysis videos I'm putting out, and I work off song suggestions. So that's it. Quick look at my book, and I look forward to meeting you. Just email me, introduce yourself, and together we're going to make beautiful music. Thanks for watching. Bye.